Welcome to 4.3's video area of a trapezoid. So again, this is something you should add into whatever you're doing to keep track of all your formulas, whether it be note cards or Quizlet or whatnot. Because you're getting another area here, and this one's probably the most complex one. It's not hard, but it is the most complex. So here we go. So the first question is, what is a trapezoid? Well, trapezoid has to have at least two lines that are parallel. So one would look like this. So if you had, let me do it over here, two lines that are parallel, and of course this is a drawing, but this line and this line are supposed to be parallel, however this one and this one are not. So a trapezoid again has at least two parallel lines. Okay, so if you know that, you should be fine. You'll know what a trapezoid looks like. So here's what our key idea is. The key idea is the area of a trapezoid. So this sounds kind of confusing, but the area A of a trapezoid is 1/2 the product, remember product means multiplication, of its height h and the sum of its bases b1 and b2. So it would look like this as a formula. A equals 1/2, because it's 1/2 the product of h, its height, and the sum of its bases, 1 and base 2. So it would look like this. B1 plus B2. So let's see what this looks like as we're actually finding one. If we're given a trapezoid that looks like this, remember a trapezoid has at least two of the parallel lines, so we've got a parallel line right, parallel line right here, and it's parallel with this line, so that makes it a trapezoid. Now notice right away, here's our 90-degree angle, so that indicates that this line happens to be our height. So we start with our three A's. We start with A equals, we write out our formula, 1/2 height times base 1 plus base 2. The second one is we plug in information. So we don't do anything with 1/2, that stays as is. What is our height? I just showed you. If this line indicates that that's our 90-degree angle, that means 6 happens to be our height. Then we have base 1 plus base 2. So it doesn't matter which way you put these, because when we add things, we can just add them together either way. We could do the top one or the bottom. But we always look at it as the number 1 is on top, number 2 is on bottom. Again, it doesn't matter. So here's base 1, and it equals 5 feet. So I'm going to put in my 5, and then here's base 2, and it equals 9 feet. So I'm going to put in my 9. Now here we are, what we just got done discussing from chapter 3. We've got to simplify an expression. There's no unknown here except for our A, which is what our area is. So we start with order of operations. We have parentheses. What do we have inside my parentheses? So you're going to have more than 3 A's on this one. The next A is solve a little bit at a time. Leave my 1/2, leave my 6. Let's solve 9 plus 5. So 9 plus 5 equals 14. So I'm going to leave that there. Now I go back. I did what was inside my parentheses. Order of operations tells me to do what's in order next. 1/2 times 6 times 14. So 1/2 times 6 could either be 6 divided by 2 or 1/2 times 6, and it equals 3. Basically, you're splitting 6 in half. So now we have 3 times 14, and my final A on this one, if you had to do side math, that's fine. 3 times 14 equals 42. So my answer to what is the area, which is all of this area here, what is the area to this trapezoid? It would be 42 feet squared. We're still talking about area. Okay, so here's another example. Something I want you to take note of as we're doing this is they've given us three measurements. We don't need anything more than these 3 measurements to solve the area of these trapezoids. However, they might add one in there. So you have to be really careful and recognize that this is base 1, this is base 2, and this is my height. So if they were to add in something like, I don't know, 3 meters here and 5 meters here, you have to recognize that these numbers are not needed. Okay? So just a kind of heads up as we go. So we start off with our A's. So you fill out your formula. The next thing is to plug them in. So to plug in our height, we just look at where's our height. It's the red one because it has the square indicating its 90-degree angle. So that means it's 5 meters. Our base 1, okay, so it's our top number up here. This is our base 1, so it's 8.5 meters. Plus our base 2, which happens to be down here, and it's 11.5 meters. Now you're going to go back a couple chapters and remember, how do I add up decimals? Well, this one's pretty simple because we can just say 8 or 11 plus 8, okay, and then we can add our halves together after that to get another whole. Because, order of operations is telling us that we should do what's inside of our parentheses first. So 8 plus 11 gives me 19, plus one other half gives me 20. So that leads me here. All I did was, if you wanted to do it as side math, you line up your decimals when you add numbers together like that. 5 and 5 is 10, 8, 9, 10, 1 and 1 is 2, bring my decimal straight down, I end up with 20. Okay, now I go back to order of operations, and I can do a couple things here, just like now we're down to like it is a triangle, right? Area equals 1/2 times maybe our base times our height. Remember how we did that? So we can look at it as, I can split up my 20 right away, and I'm going to make this a 10. And I'm going to make this, keep it my 5. I got rid of my 1/2 down here. So now I'm left with 5 times 10 is 50. So then, in other words, the area of this trapezoid is 50 meters squared. Always squared because we're still talking about area. Alright, here's your try it problems. There's just a couple for you. I just want you to visually think about how number 1 would look. If you were to actually turn your head to the right and look at this, think about where your height would be and where your bases would be. And notice how on this line there's no indicator of how many millimeters it is. So that will indicate what goes where. I always have problems because kids put in the wrong they plug in the wrong numbers for this particular problem, so be really careful on number 1. On number 2, the 2 and 3/10 inches is representing this line, the 7 and 7/10 inch is representing this line, and the 6 inches is representing this line. Alright, the next page will have the answers. Make sure you're doing all your A's. You should have between 4 and 5 A's for trapezoids. Alright, your answer for number 1 is 30 millimeters squared, and your answer for number 2 is 30 inches squared. Make sure you come ready to class with any questions you had, like maybe you didn't get 30 inches squared or 30 millimeters squared for each of these, and you had to figure out how you got back there. Jot those questions down in your notebook and be ready to discuss it with your group on Monday.